And now back to the mess in Washington. She's avoided appearing before Congress for 5 months. This week, lawmakers finally got a chance to question one of the top bosses at the IRS, Sarah Hall Ingram, the one who headed up the office directly involved in the targeting of conservative groups. And get this, she's rewarded with a promotion to the new Obamacare division of the IRS. But as usual, another member of this administration has memory issues. With me, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow. Good evening, Jay.
Hi, Judge. Good to see you.
Good. This woman, Lois Lerner's boss, conveniently forgets the facts that would implicate her in a crime. She dodges Congress for 5 months, but goes to the White House 155 times. What does that tell you?
Well, we know what happened. She went to the White House because there was concurrent litigation going on. There was these lawsuits that were filed against a portion of Obamacare, what's called the HHS, or Health and Human Services mandate. There's been a number of those lawsuits. A lot of them headed to the Supreme Court right now. I had 8 of them. She goes over to the White House 155 times, meeting often with the White House director who's in charge of Obamacare, giving her advice on the litigation, and then shares, again, 6103, what's called 6103, as you mentioned before the segment, taxpayer information to White House officials. Now, this comes on the heels of disclosures that the IRS was also, through Lois Lerner, who worked for Sarah Hall Ingram, was sharing taxpayer information with the Federal Election Commission, which is also a violation of 6103, which also comes on the heels of the disclosure of donor information from a nonprofit tax-exempt organization, and that information was given to their opponents on an issue.
So Jay, what we're talking about,
unfortunately, a pattern, but 155 visits is unreal.
What we're talking about is a breaking of the law by people in the Obama administration that is blatant, for which no one shares any accountability. And whenever they get in front of a congressional oversight committee charged with overseeing what they're doing, they say, oh, I don't remember, I plead the fifth. I mean, will the Obama administration ever take responsibility or ever bring any of these people to account for the wrongdoing?
Look, I've got litigation representing 41 of these conservative organizations against the administration, against the IRS, and against people like Sarah Hall Ingram and Lois Lerner. The fact of the matter is this. Evidently, what's happened here is they are slowly getting information out, and every time they get information out to these House committees, it gets worse. Sarah Hall Ingram's situation, I mean, you're talking about forgetting. Number one, 6103 is criminal. So if you violate 6103, it's a felony. That's number one. Number two, and I think this is, something that's getting kind of overlooked here. The fact of the matter is, you got to ask yourself, how is she now in charge of the enforcement division of the IRS for Obamacare when, in fact, when asked before a House committee, was asked the question of what the daily penalty was for noncompliance for businesses, and she did not know the answer to that. And this is the person that's in charge of compliance. Now, a long time ago, when I got out of law school, I worked for the Office of Chief Counsel for the IRS. And I will tell you, things have changed drastically in the over 30 years ago that I was there.
Well,
and times may have changed, but I've never seen anything like this in my legal career. I've been practicing law for 34 years.
You know what, Jay, the pervasiveness and the ignoring of the law by so many in high levels of this administration it's stunning. Anyway, Jay, thanks so much for being with us this evening.
Thanks, Judge.
All right, and with me, Wetumpka, Alabama Tea Party President Becky Gerritsen, whose group was targeted by the IRS. Now, I'm going to ask you, good evening, Becky, I'm going to ask you to listen to this Democrat who took his mocking of the hearing this week to a new level.
Have you been consorting with the devil?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
Are reports that you can fly accurate?
Greatly exaggerated, sir.
Have you been involved in any way in trying to pervert our youth in Salem or anywhere else?
I certainly hope not, sir.
Becky, somehow I'm sure you're not laughing at that. How does that make you feel?
Well, it's interesting. When you look back in May, President Obama said he was outraged at what had happened at the IRS. It was so serious that the FBI was, Eric Holder was going to send a team from the FBI to investigate. Here we are 5 months later, and they're joking about it in Congress that it's a witch hunt. And it's just spitting in the face of American citizens again. It's the power in Washington, and it's out of control.
And what do you think about the fact that, not just the humor that's being used to describe a situation that many consider criminal, but the fact that they are so open about it and not worried at all about consequences?
It's amazing to me. Like you said, it is stunning. This is the most egregious abuse of power against ordinary citizens that we have ever seen in our history. And yet they sit up there and laugh about it.
And has the Obama administration taken any responsibility that you know of? Has anyone reached out to you for the fact that you were targeted?
No, and we have not been contacted by the FBI either. But one thing that is so important, Judge, is that, heads need to roll. They need to bring out the orange suits. These people have, done felonies. This is so wrong. And I can't wait till we really get to the bottom of it.
Well, I don't know if we ever will. We're still waiting for Benghazi and a lot of other stuff. But how do you feel about the fact that the IRS is going to be charged with the implementation of Obamacare?
Well, it's really funny when you think about they can't even handle making an unbiased decision on some tax-exempt organizations. And we know that Obamacare is going to be cash-strapped. How in the world are they going to be making decisions for 300 million people on health care? What are they going to use as their basis for decisions? Will it be your political affiliation?
Yeah. Well, Becky, I think that you hit the nail on the head, and the concern is that decisions as to what medical care people get, whether it's, God forbid, a mastectomy or, a limb or anything else is going to be dependent upon people who not only are not in the medical business, but who share political information with the White House. Becky, thanks so much for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. And coming up, who's really to blame for the mess that this government is in? We'll give you a hint. He lives in a big white house. And don't forget to vote in our Insta poll. What should happen to Defense Secretary Hagel, who refused death benefits to soldiers killed in action? Facebook or tweet me at Judge Jeanine.